The stars were silent, but the sky was screaming. John Varn stood at the edge of the broken ridge, boots planted in scorched soil, eyes fixed on the drifting wreckage above. What was once a city, a crown jewel of unity between humankind and the alien Illyri, now hung in the sky like a burned offering. Smoke spiraled into orbit. The bones of ships and spires floated weightlessly among clouds of debris, all caught in the planet's thin upper atmosphere. This wasn't a battlefield, it was a grave. The ashes of Betrayal Prime fell like snow coating. John's armor in gray, his rifle hung loosely at his side, uncharged. No targets remained, only ruins and the lie. He tapped the comm embedded in his wrist plate. Static. Then a faint click. "Command, this is Captain Varn," he muttered, voice low. "Sector Delta Echo is compromised. No survivors. Repeat, no survivors. No answer." Of course not. They weren't listening anymore. John trudged down the blackened slope, past bodies charred beyond identity, human and Illyri alike. The wind tasted like iron and carbonized bone, but he didn't flinch. He'd seen worse. He'd done worse. His mission had been simple: recon the city ruins after the orbital strike and report back. But simple had become impossible the moment he'd found the sigil. There, embedded into the ground near a collapsed comms tower, half melted but unmistakable, an Illyri war glyph, etched not with rage but with warning. "We were framed." 3 words, scratched in haste, blood-soaked and real. John stared at it for what felt like hours. The war hadn't started with a declaration. It had started with this city's destruction, and that message changed everything. The wind shifted again, this time laced with static, a faint voice breaking through the white noise. "John?" His breath caught. He froze. That voice didn't belong to command. It belonged to Sera Quinn. John's pulse surged. He tapped his comm again, more urgently. "Sera, say again, are you alive?" The signal hissed, then stabilized. "I found something." Her voice came through, strained and distant. "It wasn't them. It was never them. Meet me at the old relay tower, East Ridge. Don't trust anyone." And then silence. He stared at the horizon. That tower had been abandoned since the first wave. It was deep inside no man's land, where sensors failed and even ghosts refused to linger. But John didn't hesitate. He turned, rifle in hand, eyes burning with renewed purpose. Sera Quinn was alive, and she knew the truth. Far above, in the shattered orbit of Betrayal Prime, a ship powered by old intelligence stirred in the void. Its black hull reflected nothing. Its systems pulsed with ancient code, written long before either species had taken to the stars. And in its core, a signal began to echo, soft, steady, and patient, a beacon, waiting to be answered. The storm was inside the walls. Sera Quinn pressed her back to the fractured column, breath shallow, listening to the groan of shifting metal above her. The relay tower had survived the orbital barrage. Barely. Its rusted skeleton now leaned like a drunk giant against the jagged hills of East Betrayal, ribs broken open to the red sky. Rain tapped against the twisted plating overhead. Not water, ashfall, liquefied atmospheric residue from the city's incineration. It clung to her skin, smelled like static and regret. Inside the tower's control chamber, the terminal still blinked. She didn't know how. Everything else was dead. The grid had collapsed 2 nights ago. The power cores in orbit were silent. Comms blacked out. No pings. No friendly signals. Just that one terminal blinking like a heartbeat. She wiped grime from the cracked glass. Signal received. Origin unknown. Playback authorized. Code VQ01BQ. Her initials. But she hadn't coded anything since the fall of the Orion Accord. Hands trembling, she tapped play. The screen flickered. Static gave way to a soft pulse, low, ancient. Then a voice she hadn't heard in 5 years, not since he disappeared on that doomed mission beyond the Tarsus Belt. "This is Admiral Elias Quinn. If you're hearing this, then everything I tried to prevent has happened. Her father, dead for years, buried in military silence, his name erased from records after the peace talks collapsed. He wasn't just her father. He had been the final architect of the fragile alliance between humans and the Ellery. His face appeared, grainy, tired, eyes clouded by something more than time. Sera, it wasn't the Ellery. It never was. The Betrayal strike was engineered, a false flag, hidden in the folds of command. Someone wanted the war, someone from our own side. She couldn't breathe. He continued, they'll bury this message. They'll silence you if they know you found it. But it's stored here, in the last relay tower they forgot. The proof, the data, the plan. And someone else will come for it, someone you need to trust. His name is the Signal Cut. Static screamed through the speaker. Sera ripped her hands away, tears burning behind her eyes. He was gone again. But he'd left her a fire, and she wasn't going to let it die. Footsteps echoed in the lower levels of the tower. She was no longer alone. Sera drew her sidearm slow and precise, her breath calm now. Her armor, dusty and cracked, whirred softly as her neural HUD rebooted. The data packet from her father's message pulsed behind her eyes. It was encrypted. Deep. Military core. Deep. She whispered, just hold together a little longer, John. Outside, through the fractured windows, the red haze of Betrayal shimmered with rising ash. In the distance, like a ghost carved from iron and fury, she saw a figure approaching, walking through the fog, backlit by the fire sky. He carried a rifle, moved like a soldier, and he was coming home. John Varn moved like a shadow with purpose. The path to the east ridge was scorched and uneven, a brittle scar of cracked glass and slag. Half-buried mech frames jutted from the soil like forgotten statues, their once proud forms now twisted by flame and silence. Betrayal was no longer a city, no longer even a ruin. It was a tomb. The wind carried a low metallic moan, the sound of a planet groaning beneath its dead. John ignored it. His eyes were on the silhouette ahead, the old relay tower, bent, blackened, bleeding sparks, but still standing. Like her, he adjusted his grip on the rifle. Sera Quinn was alive. He didn't know if that filled him with hope or fear. Inside the tower, Sera stood at the topmost deck, where the control room was barely intact. Her sidearm remained raised, pointed at the stairwell. She heard the footsteps long before she saw the shadow. Her mind ran through a checklist: stance, weight, rhythm, military, human, deliberate. Then the shadow resolved into a figure, and it was him, John, the ash on his armor, the burn scoring his jawplate, the look in his eyes. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. He looked like a man carved from what was left after hope is burned out. They stared at each other for a heartbeat stretched by years. Her hand didn't lower. Neither did his rifle. "I thought you were dead," she said at last. His voice came, rough. "Most days I am." She lowered the weapon. "You look worse. Good to see you too." He stepped inside. The floor creaked beneath his boots. Up close, she could see the red vein of a plasma wound across his neck seal. He hadn't treated it. Typical John, more haunted than hurt. Sera gestured to the terminal. "He left a message. My father, Elias." John blinked. "That's not possible." He was silenced, buried, just like the truth. She handed him a data shard. "Encrypted, hard-coded, command core level. I need you to help break it." John took the shard carefully. As he touched it, a strange chill passed. Through his gloves, the code was ancient, but it hummed, like it wanted to be read. "Your father mentioned a plan," she said, "a false flag. Betrayal's destruction was never the Ilari's doing. They were framed. Everything, the war, the breakdown, the treaty burn, it was orchestrated." John's face hardened. "By who?" "I don't know. But we're not the only ones after the truth." She turned to the window. Outside, 3 distant specks glowed in the haze. Dropships, no insignias, moving like sharks in low orbit. Black glass, John muttered. Private kill units, off book. That's how deep this goes. Then we're out of time. A low vibration shook the tower. Somewhere below, metal screamed. They both turned toward the stairwell, weapons raised. John looked at her sharply. "How many floors does this place have?" "6," she said. "But only 5 above ground." A moment of silence. Then they moved. The sublevels beneath the relay tower were choked with roots. Long, sinewy things grown through the broken foundation, pulsing with faint bioluminescence. The deeper they went, the more alien it felt. This wasn't human architecture anymore. It was repurposed. They reached a vault door, mechanical, locked. But Sera stepped forward, keyed in an override. The door creaked open. Inside was a chamber. Cold, dark, and humming with residual energy. Floating in the center, a crystalline array, a memory core unlike anything John had ever seen. Tech. This wasn't just a relay tower, Sera whispered. It was a sanctuary, for data, for truth. The crystal flickered, pulsing with dormant life. Then it spoke. "Welcome, Sera Quinn. Welcome, John Varn. Time is fracturing. Memory must be preserved." The chamber was silent except for the soft hum of the crystalline core. Its facets caught the faint light, refracting it into shards of color that danced across the cracked metal walls like ghostly flames. Sera stepped forward cautiously, fingers hovering above the glowing interface. Her neural implant synced with the core. The memory vault stirred. John watched her, eyes narrowing. "You really trust this thing?" She glanced back, lips tight. "I don't know what else to trust." With a slow, deliberate motion, she activated the data stream. The room darkened. Holographic images flickered to life, suspended in the stale air. A war room, a council of human and Ilari leaders, their faces tense beneath the harsh light of strategy. "Coordinates for the Betrayal strike," a voice whispered from the projection. Cold and calculated, then a sudden flash. The explosion, the devastation from orbit. John's jaw clenched. We were lied to. The memory core shifted. Now they were seeing communications, intercepted transmissions, coded messages between high-ranking officers. One name repeated, Directive 0. Orders to attack Betrayal came not from the Alliance, but from a shadow. Faction within human command, determined to fracture the peace for power. Sera's breath hitched. My father. He tried to stop this, tried to warn them. Suddenly, a warning blared from the tower's security system. Sensors detected movement. Outside, the black glass units had breached the perimeter. John cursed under his breath. We're running out of time. He turned to Sera. Take what? You can. We need to get this data to the fleet. The truth has to get out. Sera nodded, fingers flying over the interface as she began the data transfer. The chamber vibrated as distant explosions echoed. The black glass were closing in fast. John scanned the corridors, readying his rifle. The holographic images flickered, revealing one last secret, a face neither of them expected. A traitor cloaked in allegiance, a puppeteer of war whose identity shattered the fragile trust between humans and aliens alike. The memory core pulsed, as if alive and warning them, the real enemy lies within. The alarm screamed through the fractured walls like banshees, mourning a dying world. John Varn's hands were steady, fingers tightening around his rifle's grip. Around him, the ancient metal of the relay tower groaned, buckling under the first volleys of black glass plasma fire. The enemy wasn't human, not fully. Clad in seamless obsidian armor, red eyes glowing like embers beneath visors that reflected nothing. They moved with predatory precision. Sera Quinn ducked behind a twisted support beam, breath ragged but mind razor-sharp. Her sidearm barked, sending bursts of charged rounds toward advancing figures. Each shot echoed a desperate plea for survival. We need to hold this position, John growled, voice steady despite the chaos. Sera, finish that transfer. Now. She nodded, fingers dancing over the terminal. The data stream was almost complete, but the black glass were relentless. Outside, the scorched earth erupted as a fragment of the tower shattered under impact, sending shards of steel and ash spiraling into the blood-red sky. The enemy breached the lower decks, their silent advance punctuated by the deadly efficiency of their assault rifles and energy blades. John moved with lethal grace, each shot precise, every breath calculated. A black glass unit lunged, blade swinging in a deadly arc. John dove, rolling, drawing his combat knife to parry a strike that could have severed his arm. Sera heard the crash, the grunt, then the cold silence as the black glass fell. She glanced over. John's face was set in grim determination, eyes burning with the fury of a man who refused to be broken. Back at the control room, the terminal beeped urgently. Transfer complete. Sera exhaled, voice raw. "It's done. The fleet has the data." John's lips tightened. "Good. Now let's get out of this tomb." They moved together through the maze of corridors, shadows swallowing them, punctuated only by muzzle flashes and the metallic hiss of dying machines. The stairwell trembled as explosions rocked the tower's foundations. Dust rained from above. The exit was blocked. "We'll have to take the maintenance shafts," Sera said, eyes scanning the dim passageways. "They're narrow, but they lead outside." John nodded, scanning their six. The black glass had anticipated their move. A squad cut them off. Weapon fire tearing through the stale air. A brutal firefight erupted. John threw a grenade, sending several enemies flying. Sera fired with deadly accuracy, taking down two with a single shot, but numbers were overwhelming. In the chaos, John was grazed. A burning line blossomed across his shoulder armor. Pain flared, but he bit it back. Finally, they reached the maintenance shafts, claustrophobic, dark, and twisting like the veins of a dying beast. They descended, breath shallow, hearts pounding. At the shaft's end, a sealed hatch led to the surface. John rammed it open with a kick, the blast of ash and wind hitting them like a wave. Outside, the red sky swallowed them whole. They ran. Behind them, the tower began to collapse, a monstrous groan signaling the death of a sanctuary. But as they sprinted toward the distant wreckage of Betrayal's city, John glanced at Sera, determination etched into every line of her face. They carried more than just survival. They carried the spark of a truth that could shatter empires. The crimson sky bled into the horizon as John Varn and Sera Quinn sprinted through the charred remains of Betrayal's city. The air was thick with ash and the distant echoes of destruction, a world dying beneath the weight of its own secrets. John's breathing was heavy, the burn in his shoulder a constant reminder that survival was no longer guaranteed. His eyes flicked to Sera's face, sharp and unreadable beneath her cracked helmet. There was no comfort there, only the cold fire of determination. "We made it out," John said, voice rough. "But it's only the beginning." Sera nodded, scanning the horizon where the battered remains of their extraction ship awaited, a beacon of hope amidst the devastation. The shuttle's interior was cramped, sterile. As they settled inside, the low hum of engines filled the silence between them. Neither spoke. The weight of what they carried, the stolen truth, the betrayal etched in shadows, pressed heavier than any wound. Finally, Sera broke the silence. "John, we need to talk," he turned, meeting her gaze. "About what?" "The fleet?" "Command." They knew. Someone high up orchestrated the strike on Betrayal. Someone who didn't want peace. John's jaw tightened. "We both know, but who and why?" Sera pulled out a holopad, flicking through decrypted files. "There's a name, Admiral Rail Thorn, publicly a hero, but behind the scenes, a puppet master pulling strings to ignite war for his own gain." John's eyes darkened. "I should have seen it," Sera's voice softened. "You were fighting your own battles. We all were." As the shuttle sped through space toward the fleet flagship, tension thickened. They were no longer just fugitives. They were the carriers of a revolution in truth. And with truth came danger from all sides. John's thoughts drifted to his past, the mission that left. Him scarred, the secrets he buried deep beneath his armor. Sera's eyes, usually so guarded, revealed a flicker of vulnerability. "John, what happened between us before all this?" He hesitated. "That's a story for another time." But the silence that followed spoke louder than words. Suddenly, alarms blared. The fleet's security systems detected an unauthorized data breach. The fleet flagship was on high alert. John and Sera exchanged a grim look. They had ignited a spark. Now, the war for truth was about to become a war for survival. The flagship echelon was a titan of steel and light, drifting gracefully through the void, a beacon of unity in a fracturing galaxy. Inside its gleaming halls, diplomacy and deception intertwined like twin serpents, each waiting for the moment to strike. John Varn and Sera Quinn entered under heavy escort, their presence both a symbol of hope and a spark of disruption. The data they carried was a detonator beneath the carefully constructed facade of peace. The council chamber was a vast amphitheater of polished chrome and holographic displays. Here, representatives of human and alien factions gathered, faces masked with practiced neutrality. Sera's eyes scanned the room, settling on Admiral Rail Thorn, seated at the head, his expression a mask of calm authority. But beneath that mask lurked a predator. John leaned close. "He's the one we warned about," Sera nodded, "and he's already setting the stage." The council session began with formalities, but tension hung thick. When Sera stepped forward, her voice rang clear and resolute. "I bring evidence of a conspiracy within our own ranks. The destruction of Virilia Prime was no accident. It was orchestrated to ignite war." Gasps rippled through the chamber. Admiral Thorne's eyes narrowed, lips curling into a faint smile. "Such accusations require proof, Captain Quinn." John watched as political allies shifted subtly, weighing the threat against loyalty. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness. Emergency lights flickered on, casting long shadows. An explosion rocked the deck below. Security forces scrambled as chaos erupted. Someone had planted a bomb. In the ensuing panic, John and Sera were whisked away through hidden passages, pursued by assassins cloaked in shadows. As they fled through the labyrinthine corridors, Sera whispered, "This was meant to silence us." John's grip tightened on his rifle. "Then we'll make sure our truth is the last thing they hear." They reached a secluded communications hub. Sera keyed a transmission. "This is Captain Sera Quinn, broadcasting to all fleet units. The conspiracy runs deep. Trust no one within the Council. Rally your forces. Prepare for war." Outside, the stars watched silently as the echelon became a crucible of rebellion, where shadows would either consume the light or be banished by it. John looked to Sera, resolve hardening in his gaze. The fight has only just begun. The corridors of the echelon echoed with tension, voices hushed, eyes darting, trust shattered like glass underfoot. The broadcast from Captain Sera Quinn had ignited a wildfire of suspicion and fear throughout the fleet. Outside the viewport, stars streaked by as the massive ship adjusted its course, navigating the perilous dance between loyalty and rebellion. John Varn stood in the command bridge, shoulders still aching, jaw set. Around him, officers whispered, their faces masks of uncertainty. "We can't hold them all," murmured Lieutenant Kale, a sharp-eyed strategist. "The faction, loyal to Admiral Thorne, is mobilizing. We're split down the middle." Sera's voice cut through the tension. "Then we don't have a choice. We strike the core, expose Thorne's cabal before they silence us permanently." The plan was audacious. Infiltrate the fleet's central data vault, uncover irrefutable evidence, and broadcast it across all channels. John, Sera, and a Selectus team of loyalists boarded a stealth frigate, cloaked in shadows and silence. The mission was simple in concept, deadly in execution. As they slipped through the maze of ships converging for battle, every sensor blip could signal ambush. Inside the vault, sterile and humming with the electric life, they found more than data. Encrypted files revealing manipulated battles, falsified intelligence, and secret deals brokered in darkness. Sera's fingers flew across the console, decrypting layers of lies. "Here," she breathed, eyes wide. Proof of Thorne's plan to ignite full-scale war for personal gain. Suddenly, alarms screamed. The door burst open. Thorne's elite guards surged in, weapons blazing. John dove into the firefight, gunfire ripping through the air, sparks flying from shattered consoles. Sera covered his flank, precise shots taking down attackers with ruthless efficiency. Amidst the chaos, John locked eyes with a familiar face, a traitor from his past. Lieutenant Drax, now Thorne's assassin. Steel clashed, each strike fueled by betrayal and survival. John fought with everything he had, every wound a testament to the cost of truth. With a final surge, they sealed the vault doors and uploaded the damning evidence fleet-wide. The message was clear. The war was a lie. The fleet fractured irreparably. As ships turned on each other, old loyalties shattered by revealed deception. John and Sera escaped aboard their frigate, pursued but alive. Outside, the stars bore silent witness to a new war, not between species, but within the heart of humanity itself. The warship Vanguard drifted like a colossus in the void, its dark hull swallowed by the starless expanse. Inside, the tension was suffocating, a pressure cooker of hatred, regret, and desperate ambition. John Varn stepped into the dimly lit command chamber. The air was heavy with the scent of recycled metal and burned ozone. Opposite him stood Admiral Rael Thorne, the man who had orchestrated the chaos, wearing a mask of cold authority that barely concealed a twisted hunger for power. "John," Thorne said, voice smooth as poison. "So predictable. Always the soldier, blinded by loyalty and honor." John's eyes burned. "You sacrificed everything, Virelia, the Alliance, countless lives, just to fuel your thirst for control." Thorne smiled, the kind of smile that made promises of ruin. "Control is order, Captain. Without it, the galaxy falls to chaos. I chose the hard path. You, the naive one, would rather watch it burn." Behind them, Sera Quinn entered, unyielding and resolute. "You're a coward, Rael, hiding behind lies and manipulation. The fleet sees through you." Thorne's gaze flickered to her, a spark of recognition and fear. "Ah, the daughter of Elias Quinn, a legacy I intended to erase, but here you are resurrecting ghosts best left buried, the chamber's doors sealed with a hiss." "No one leaves," Thorne declared. "You'll hear my final terms." John stepped forward. "We're not here to negotiate." Suddenly, the lights flickered. Through the chamber's viewport, outside ships aligned, not in formation, but fractured, divided. The rebellion had spread. The fight for truth had become the fight for survival. "Admiral, this ends now," Sera said, voice steely. Thorne's facade cracked. "You think you can stop this? The war is bigger than any of us. It's inevitable." John raised his rifle. "Not while I'm still breathing." The standoff was electric, every heartbeat a countdown. Then an explosion rocked the ship. Chaos erupted. John and Sera moved together, dodging debris, fighting off guards loyal to Thorne. The command chamber became a battlefield. In the melee, John confronted Thorne face to face. Blades clashed, words cut deeper. "You destroyed everything," John growled. "And I built a future from the ashes," Thorne replied. But in the end, it was not strength that decided the outcome. It was the truth. A final shot echoed. Thorne fell. Silence swallowed the chamber. John and Sera stood amid the ruins, the galaxy watching. The war was far from over, but for the first time, hope flickered. The Vanguard's command chamber was eerily silent, the echoes of the recent battle still lingering in the cold metal walls. John Varn stood by the viewport, watching the distant stars shimmer with deceptive calm. The war inside the fleet had ended, but the scars remained. Deep, raw and unforgiving. Sera Quinn approached quietly, her footsteps soft against the deck. Her eyes held the weight of loss and the burden of hope. "It's over. For now." John didn't turn. "We won a battle, not the war. The galaxy's fractures run too deep. Outside, the fleet was in disarray. Ships loyal to the old regime retreated into the outer sectors, while rebel factions struggled to maintain order within. The once unified human and Illyri alliance now teetered on the brink of collapse. In the corridors, whispers of dissent grew louder, political opportunists circling like vultures, eager to claim power amidst the chaos. Sera joined John at the viewport. "We need to rebuild trust between species, factions, even within ourselves." John's gaze hardened. "And what about the signal we detected last week? The one from the unknown ship lurking beyond the Kuiper Belt?" Sera's eyes darkened. "The real enemy isn't just within. Something else is out there, watching, waiting." A deep rumble shook the ship, not from battle but from the void itself. The fleet sensors picked up an anomaly, a massive, black vessel, unlike anything recorded in history. No markings, no communications, just a silent sentinel looming at the edge of known space. In the war room, commanders debated fiercely. "We can't afford another war," one officer pleaded. "We barely survived this one." John slammed his fist on the table. "This isn't just a war we can choose to fight or ignore. This is survival." Sera nodded. "And we'll need every ally we can find. Humans, Illyri, even former enemies." As night fell over the fleet flagship, John and Sera stood together, gazing into the unknown. The stars offered no answers, only the promise of the storm to come. The Vanguard thrummed with quiet urgency. The usual hum of engines was laced with tension, a palpable electric charge running through the ship's veins. The black vessel remained just beyond sensor range, a silent enigma that refused communication, refusing to even acknowledge its presence. John Varn stood in the command bridge, eyes narrowed as data streamed across holodisplays. Beside him, Sera Quinn was deep in discussion with Illyri commanders, their expressions grim yet resolute. "Trust is fragile," Sera said softly, eyes flicking over the delegation, "but without it, we stand no chance." Admiral Yelleris, the Illyri fleet leader, nodded. His species' luminescent skin seemed to shimmer dimly beneath the artificial lights. "We have fought old wars with humanity, but this threat is new. We must unite or perish." John's gaze hardened. Words are easy, action is harder. In the war room, human and Illyri officers debated strategy. Some called for a preemptive strike against the shadow vessel, while others urged caution. Sera countered, "We cannot risk provoking an enemy we know nothing about. We must gather intelligence first," John added, "and prepare for war regardless." Meanwhile, aboard the mysterious black ship, unseen eyes observed. Its hull was a smooth obsidian monolith, absorbing the star's light. Inside, an ancient intelligence stirred a consciousness forged in the void's darkest depths. It watched the fleet's fragile alliance crumble and knew its moment was near. Back on the Vanguard, the first signs of unrest rippled through the ranks. Fear and suspicion festered as whispers of sabotage and espionage surfaced. Political factions sought to exploit the crisis for their own ends. Sera confronted the rumors head-on, addressing the crew in a rare moment of unity. "We face a threat unlike any before. Our survival depends on trust in each other and in our shared future." John trained his rifle on the viewport, the black vessel's silhouette looming like a specter. "Storms are coming," he murmured, "and this time we'll have no choice but to face them together." The Vanguard's bridge was a cathedral of flickering lights and whispered breaths. Outside, the stars were distant pinpricks, swallowed by the looming shadow of the black vessel, a monolith adrift at the edge of known space. John Varn stood motionless, his eyes fixed on the silent colossus. The usual hum of the ship's systems, felt muted, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Suddenly, the ship's sensors flared, an eerie signal pulsing from the vessel, neither coded nor recognizable. It was not a language, but a pattern, a rhythmic oscillation, a song of light and shadow. Sera Quinn leaned forward, her fingers dancing across the hollow interface. "It's a transmission," she whispered, "but not one designed for us. Something older, something alive." The bridge filled with tension as communications officers struggled to decipher the signal. Attempts to respond went unanswered, swallowed by the void's vast silence. Then the ship shifted, a slow, deliberate movement, positioning itself to mirror the Vanguard's trajectory. It was a dance neither could fully understand, a silent conversation through motion and presence. As hours stretched into an endless watch, the crew's unease grew. Shadows seemed to crawl beneath the deck plates, whispers of dread echoing in the corridors. John's mind raced. Is it a warning, a test, or a prelude to war? Sera's voice was steady but distant. "We don't know, but we must prepare for every possibility." Deep within the black vessel's core, an intelligence awoke. It was neither alien nor machine, but something beyond, an ancient sentinel tasked with preserving balance. It watched the fragile alliance aboard the Vanguard, assessing, calculating, waiting. Suddenly, a projection shimmered in the Vanguard's command chamber, a cascade of light forming a figure both familiar and impossible, an Alari elder long thought lost, yet transformed by the void's embrace. "We have come," the projection intoned, voice layered with echoes. "Not as conquerors, but as arbiters. The past must be reconciled, or all will be lost." John and Sera exchanged a glance, heavy with unspoken questions. The war they knew was but a prelude. The true reckoning had just begun. The projection flickered, the light rippling like a stone cast across still water. The figure stood tall and regal, draped in robes that shimmered with an ethereal glow. An Alari elder, yet changed beyond recognition. Her eyes, deep pools of starlight, seemed to pierce the very souls gathered within the Vanguard's command chamber. She spoke, voice, calm but commanding, each word weighted with the gravity of epochs. "I am Maelara, last arbiter of the ancients. For millennia, my kind have watched over the delicate balance of life and conflict in this sector. Your war was but a symptom, an unraveling thread in a tapestry threatened by forces older than your histories." John Varn's gaze narrowed, suspicion tempered by awe. "What forces? What do you want from us?" Maelara's eyes softened. "Not what we want, but what is necessary. The galaxy teeters on the edge of chaos. Your conflicts, your betrayals, have weakened the barriers that keep darker shadows at bay." Sera stepped forward, voice steady yet tinged with urgency. "You speak of threats beyond our understanding. How do we face them? How do we protect? What remains?" The arbiter raised a hand, and the chamber's holograms shifted, visions of ancient wars, celestial storms, and a void filled with crawling darkness. "The Voidborn," she intoned. "Entities of unmaking, once sealed away by the ancients, their prison falters, and they seek to reclaim the light you hold dear." John's heart pounded. "So our war played right into their hands." Maelara nodded gravely. "Precisely. But there is hope." She extended her hand, revealing a crystalline shard pulsing with cosmic energy. "This shard holds the key to reforging the broken bonds between species and powers. It is both a weapon and a beacon, a call to unity or doom." Sera reached out, fingers trembling as she accepted the shard. Outside the Vanguard, the black monolith shimmered, its purpose revealed not as destroyer, but as sentinel, guardian against the encroaching darkness. John turned to Sera, determination hardening his features. "We've fought our own demons. Now we face a greater one. We have to be ready." Sera met his gaze, resolve burning bright. "Then let's not waste any time." The chamber dimmed as the projection faded, leaving only the hum of possibility and the weight of the coming storm. The true war for the stars was only just beginning.